Hello, welcome to Intuitive Insights. I am your no BS woo-woo coach, Megan McDonough. I am an intuitive guide and a creativity coach. So this week on Intuitive Insights, usually I like to explore once a month something that's been coming up either in readings or in life and share my reflections on it that hopefully you can utilize in your life, tools, reflections, etc., things to think about, things to mull over. Um, and then I do an interview in the second half of the month. And that is somebody who is using intuition in their lives daily, kind of demystifying it, making it more practical and applicable for you in your everyday life. And then also looking at different walks of life and how they use it. So this week, I'm actually re-airing a interview that I did with Kirsten Askins. Kirsten is a yoga instructor, the owner of Hanu Yoga in New Jersey, and she is also a Reiki master teacher. She is an astrologer and a budding herbologist. So the reason I'm re-airing this is because Kirsten and I are doing a workshop this Sunday, 6:30 to 8 Central Time. And what we're looking at is, for those of you who are familiar with the lunar nodes, they have shifted. They shifted, I believe, in January. And so they're going to be shifted for the next 18 months, so well into the early part of 2026. And this workshop is to look at where those lunar nodes are affecting you in your life, where the energy, the universal energy, is asking you to tap into your intuition and to release, tap into your intuition, creativity, and spirituality through Pisces, and then release kind of the control, the perfection of Virgo. So where that might be affecting you in your life, and then how to learn how to flow with it and work with it as best you can throughout this time. So I'm reintroducing Kirsten Askins here, going through our recording. And I hope that you will join us on Sunday, the 13th at 6:30. And be sure to do it ahead of time because Kirsten will need your birth information in order to get the correct chart for you to pull up. Okay. I hope you have a magical week. Make some magic today. Big buckets of love. Here's Kirsten. Hello, welcome to Intuitive Insights. I am your host, Megan McDonough. I am an intuitive guide and a creativity coach. And today I have with me Jen Cohen. Jen has always been captivated by the power of intuition. After a life-changing experience in her 20s, she explored how intuition could shape her life and her career. During her 27 years in the entertainment industry, Jen found that intuitive decisions often led her to success. Now she is an intuitive consultant. She helps individuals and organizations unlock potential, gain clarity and creativity and purpose in both personal and professional realms. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you. It's so good to be talking to you.
I am so glad we met. And we chatted a little bit before, but I just felt like very magical us connecting, when we first did. But I have a couple of questions I have to ask you at the bat.
Okay.
So what is two questions? What is intuition to you and how do you use it in your life? So what is intuition to you?
Oh, intuition to me. Yeah. How I define it, I actually like the definition that Webster's gives. I think it's actually pretty good, which is the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. I find that actually very descriptive.
Okay. That's perfection. And I can't believe I've never looked that up.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, that's actually a perfect definition.
Yeah. It's how I use intuition. It's how I found my intuition. And we all have intuition. Nobody does not have it. I think of it as our first sense rather than our sixth sense.
Meh.
Yeah. Yeah. And through life and through how we grow and through our experiences, culture tends to devalue that intuitive sense. And so rather than having to learn it again, it's a remembering. That's how I like to think of it.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. So, question, how did you start this path? How did you start to kind of, so in the entertainment world, you were in the marketing, is that correct?
I ended in marketing within the financial division,
Oh, okay.
but I started in publicity in the animation division.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And so went through lots of different iterations of what I did in the entertainment industry, which isn't actually all that common, but I
Yeah.
attribute to my intuition because I just followed where my curiosity led me. And I never really allowed the critical thinking of the business and the critical minds of the business to
Yeah.
place me, okay, this is where you are. This is where you got to be. This is how you
Right.
grow. And you can never move around in this space. And, my intuition was a huge help in not only discovering what fed me and what brought me joy, but meeting the right people along the way. And I would say you and I are a perfect example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You just mentioned the word curiosity too. And I use that word a lot because um, I find curiosity comes from the heart. I call the intuition, is the heart is the brain of the intuition, where the
Yeah,
physical brain is, the ruler of the body. The heart is the ruler of the intuitive body. But in order to connect to that, you have to be curious, to stay open,
yeah,
an access point to being open is curiosity and following that curiosity.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's the part of, we have two hemispheres of our brain, the left and the right side, but the heart is connected with the right side of our brain, which is the imagination, the creativity, the curiosity. That's where intuition lives. And that means that it lives in the present moment. When we're in the left side of hemisphere of our brain, that again triggers more of worry in the future or anxiety from the past. And again, we need both sides, but we've come to rely as a culture much more on that left side, on that fearful side, on that side that kind of keeps you small and protected. And that's outdated through evolution. We really needed that back in the day when there were predators that we were,
Right.
on the lookout for. And intuition has no reason to keep you protected. It's not here for smallness. So that curiosity that we're talking about, it's really magnified through the heart space because that's love. That's greatness. That's expansiveness.
I don't remember the exact numbers or whatever it is right now, but I do know that the heart chakra is the one that can expand the widest.
Yeah.
And it can go, it said, I remember reading years ago when I was kind of, geeking out on beginning my journey on yoga, it was like if you were on your way to go see a guru, right? It was like miles away, the energy would shift. You could feel a shift in energy from that person up into them.
Yeah.
And that's because they had the capability of clearing and expanding their heart chakra that far.
Yeah. Yeah. When we talk about our aura, and that's where that's really resonating from. That's where you tap into that chakra and it can radiate 11 feet, out from you. And so, but when you walk into a room and this also, if, you work in a corporation or it can happen with family. You walk into a room or someone comes home and, their aura or their, it's a very distinct feeling of like something's shifted. And that means that their heart is probably guarded, closed off, that there's some kind of conflict going on with their intuitive sense and with their critical thinking.
Yeah. So I know you were following your intuition from, as you led you through kind of the corporate entertainment world.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, the entertainment world is very corporate.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. It's very left brain. Yes.
So as you were being guided through that with your intuition, What was it, if you remember, like specifically, what was that kind of, I call it like the golden thread to pull you forward and out of the space that you were in into the space you are now?
I moved from California to Manhattan, and in my last 10 years.
Yeah.
And it was a big executive job. There's a lot of pressure, and there was a vast polarity between the creative life that I was living in California and the financial side of the house. And that makes sense. And I needed to have that polarity in order to really start to dive into my intuitive sense. Because, it's just like anything that, unless you experience the opposite, you don't really understand the state that you're in. And so, I spent 10 years and I spent 10 years in that energy. And, I made a very, very intuitive decision early on. I did not even understand what I was doing, but I made the job bi-coastal. So I made sure that there were shows and people in California that I aligned to. Again, intuitively, this was not in the job description. It was New York based. It was New York based. And by the end, I was 2 weeks in New York, 2 weeks in California, 2 weeks in New York, 2 weeks in California. And that was my spirit basically saying, no, you need to keep dipping into this. And that was just a slower pace, more nature, less, intenseness. And then at the very end, the company was being acquired and everything, was kind of shrinking as everything gets gobbled up. And there's a lot of fear. Obviously, people fearing their jobs, people fearing the change from regular, how television was broadcast to streamers to,
Right.
how content is consumed. And I had a new boss in my last 2 to 3 years that was challenging me in a way that I had never been challenged in the business. And I would constantly say out loud, and this is for people that are listening, this is a real tip or basically sign that your intuition is trying to get a hold of you. When you keep repeating the same story over and over out loud, that is your intuition saying, please pay attention. Please pay attention. And so I would continue to say, it's like talking to a wall, talking to these people. It's like talking to a wall. Like there's just nothing coming back to me. And then one day in meditation, I had this vision of myself and I was looking myself dead in the eyes. And she said to me, it's like talking to a wall. And that's when you kind of go palm to the forehead and you're like, ugh, it's me.
Yeah.
And from that point on, it was the shift of not being quite the actor in the play or the movie, but having that space and distance to be the audience member and to be seeing what's happening. And then a discernment that comes over and says, oh, you know what? I don't have to participate in this way anymore. And so I became an intuitive consultant and it didn't shock a lot of people. I was never really hired for my PowerPoint presentations. It was the way in which I communicated with folks. But when I made that decision and moved back to California, it opened up. It was like the universe was like, oh, you're serious about this now. You've put yourself in a place to receive more messages. And that's when the channeling began. That's when, I started my business and I'm still able to work in the entertainment industry, but in a much more fulfilling way than the last couple of years.
Now, speak to me about the channeling, because you said you're a channeler. Oh, dropping my. Oh my God. Guess what? That was the pink quartz.
Did it split?
That just stopped. Yeah. So before that we started here, I'm like, my hair is up. Before we started, I was like, I have to go grab my rose quartz for some reason. And as I turn around, I go grab for my thing. I turn around and Jen's like, she's got a rose quartz in front of her. I was like, that's where it was.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess pink quartz, rose quartz, however you want to call it, wants to talk about, either does or does not want to talk about the channeling.
No, it does. It does. And that's from the heart too. The rose quartz is heart. That's what, that represents. The channeling was fascinating. didn't realize that how I had been channeling for years and when I was able to get myself into a place to really understand it, it just came full force. And what had happened is that I had moved into my home in California that I had bought while I was still in New York. Again, a very guided, intuitive decision. And it started with automatic writing, where I got, the downloads. And one evening I filled up three whole journals in 4 days.
Wow.
And it was a blueprint. It was just a blueprint to what I had been doing, to where I was now, to potentially, if I wanted, if this was resonating with me, to where it would take me.
Wow.
And it was no turning back from then. And the more I wrote, the more that I was committed to it. One day I was writing and it just automatic wrote through the channeling, okay, now start to speak this. And so then I just started speaking into voice recording, and got my first few clients, and it was right on.
That's wonderful. So when you, um, so do you channel, so with that channeling, would you say that was kind of like higher self kind of coming through, or what would you say that automatic writing was? Was it a particular entity, or was it just like opening up to source connection? How would you define it?
I'll also just mention we're all channels. We're all channels, and how that shows up for us is different. For me, the first writing channeling that I did was from my dad, and he passed when I was 20, and we had made a pact after he passed that he was just always going to be a protective force for me in my career.
Yeah.
And so it kind of came full circle, where he was just like, here you go. Here's the next
It's a very
phase.
strong presence.
Yeah. Yeah. And so my dad came through and he really taught me, trust that. And so then I started channeling my home, the soul of my home, because it was very much, I would say, it's kind of my eat, pray, love. It's just my sanctuary, the quiet that I needed. And there's nature. And yeah, it's magnificent. And then I would start to channel my higher self. And I didn't realize what I was doing. But as I was seeing it on the page, it's kind of a dream state that you get into. And then when you're writing, it just becomes more and more clear. Those layers, start to come into focus, and you can start to see who you're channeling. And then it got to the point where I would sit down and I would say, I would like to channel this person. I would like to channel this, animals, plants. I use it a lot for conflict resolution. And from there, it just expanded, and it still expands, which is the joy of being alive.
Yeah. When you do conflict, are you like asking what the soul, I'm just out of curiosity, are you asking like what the soul of one person really wants and what's at the root of the conflict, or how do you, I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites because it's the higher self of whoever's in conflict.
Yeah.
And the higher self, again, the 3D version of that person might not have access to that, but hearing that perspective of the higher self really starts to help that resolution.
Yes, very smart. Yes, because when you're when you're overwhelmed with emotion, like I was just talking to someone else the other day about how, there hasn't been one person I've talked to about intuition that has said, it's the loud, crazy, boisterous voice you can't miss.
Right. No.
It's the quiet voice. And in order to hear that quiet voice, you've got to get still. You got to get quiet, and you got to support yourself to be in a space where you can hear that. When you're triggered emotionally, your emotions get loud, and then it's hard to access that part of self.
Absolutely. Intuition does not often get loud, but
Never.
It does repeat itself.
It does it. Yes, it does repeat itself.
Yeah.
And then it influences the energy around you to catch your attention if you're not listening.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, the time that whenever I, if an accident happens or something, I'll tell you this, I had something happen to me in November. I had, out of nowhere, out of the blue, I went into the hospital because I had a pain. I thought I had like a gallbladder thing or something. I didn't know what was happening. And it turned out that I had 3 pulmonary embolisms.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I'm sorry, what? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it was very painful. And it was very like, the whole process after has been more of a mind exploration. And so whenever I get a little anxious about it, I kind of check in. And what I get is it's about the mind, meaning this process is about the mind.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
through that time, I kept asking, like, what is this? What does this mean? Because it felt too fated. It felt too out of nowhere and specific. Like it had to happen because there was no reason for it to happen. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I've been, questioning myself, and I haven't gotten a perfect answer yet or a very, succinct one. But the one thing that did come out of it that's pulling me is focusing more on my writing and the things that bring me joy.
Yeah.
And that's been the thread that I'm just holding on to and just letting all the other BS go because I just can't anymore. And maybe that in itself was the message. Like, stop focusing on the other crap. Just do what you're here to do,
Now, that's what I'm hearing. And did you follow through on that?
I hope I am.
Yeah.
In some ways, not 100%.
Yeah, but that's the process.
Yeah, but that's kind of been like that I hear on repetition.
Yeah.
That's my little japa, kind of the bass note japa as I go through the day. Is that kind of like remembering to express from the heart. I've always been an artist or creative, and that need to express that creativity brings me so much joy that when I don't, it makes me feel like I'm dying.
I was going to say.
It sounds ridiculous, but it's true.
Oh, no, it's your breath.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And literally my breath,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what can happen with not listening and accessing this part of yourself, listening to your intuition. Your intuition, the only way it gets loud is when it disrupts your life to get you to listen.
That's right. And the body follows the mind and the mind follows the breath.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes perfect sense with what you're describing.
My yoga teacher used to say, and I love this saying a lot, which is the body is to the breath as the breath is to the mind. So when you slow down, calm down, focus the body, you can slow down, calm down, focus the breath.
Yeah.
Slow down, calm down.
That's right. That's right. And it goes with intuition where it's not our job to hunt down our intuition. It's our responsibility to get ourselves in a place to receive it.
Receive it and trust it too. Like you could have heard all of those messages that you had and not followed through. Like the follow through is the important part, the courage to act.
That's right.
Because sometimes you hear messages and you're like, I don't want to touch that right now.
That's right. That's right.
You're like,
that's right.
That feels a little heavy for me.
Yeah, that's right.
And it'll never come through heavy. It'll always come through just like a plain stated fact, no emotion attached.
Yeah.
But you know that it will be heavy to deal with. And
that's right. That's why you repeat the same phrases over and over and the same stories. And again, it's all that process, it's trusting that. And so rather than pushing away and saying, I don't want to deal with that now, what the kinder way to invite your intuition is I hear you. I hear you. And it's just a much softer way. And it doesn't mean that you have to jump full force into it right at that moment. It's just an acknowledgement and it's awareness. And then, excuse me, what the universe and your higher self and your team will do is gently place more ways for you to navigate in your path.
Right. More support systems for that going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found myself saying that a lot. That, okay, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. Not this second, but I hear you.
Yeah.
It was a meditation I listened to once, and it was on Insight Timer. It was a morning meditation. And I can't remember who the woman was who said it, but it was that. It was that on repetition. She said, like look at yourself and say, I hear you. I hear you. And I don't know why, but it just brought tears to my eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and this was probably, well, I know why, because this was at the beginning of my journey. But yeah, it's just being soft with yourself is often hard for some people to do.
Oh, yeah. We can be terrible to ourselves.
Yeah.
We can be the hardest on ourselves. I mean,
Yes.
like, if you stop and like think about how your mind is talking to you throughout the day, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially like I would never talk to my daughter that way.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
or people, you never talk to people you love the way you talk to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully. Right.
It's true. It's true. And, I also like to, since we're talking rose quartz too, just place my hand over my heart and say, I hear you. And,
Mm,
it's just very subtle and it's a beautiful recognition. It's funny. I was thinking the other day, I grew up in a time where in grade school, we would always say the Pledge of Allegiance
yes.
at the beginning, and you put your right hand over your heart and you pledge your allegiance to a very external force at the
Yes.
time.
Yes.
And now I love to take that back in and say, no, I'm pledging my allegiance to me first. And then I can serve my
Yes.
community in the most authentic way that doesn't deplete me.
Yes. Absolutely. It's that whole, you got to fill up your own cup before you pour into others.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I was going to ask you, so when you work with both individuals and then also with corporations
Mhm.
and or business. So when you do that, do you have a different style, technique, language that you utilize, or how does that look for you?
Yeah. So individual is very direct, very straightforward. It's meeting them exactly where they're at. If they would like to incorporate channeling in there, we'll channel, and we go at the pace of truth. We go at the speed of comfort, and it's very conversation like. And each week can be different. And
Right.
again, it's the cadence is up to the client. I like to, make sure if we're going to be working together for an extended period of time, then it's pretty frequent. And then with businesses, I meet with the leader of the department or the organization and just get a feel for where kind of overall everybody is.
Yeah.
And I always start, with an intention and the definition of an intention versus a goal,
Yeah.
and laddering back up to that intention. And it's fascinating to even just that process right there, because an intention, in a group setting, the mission statement is a little bit different as well.
Yeah.
So, the intention of the group and then the intention of the individual. And so then we can ladder back up to those, and they're of a higher kind of source energy. That's the vibration and the frequency that I bring in. And so anytime that we start veering off of that, we can come back up to this higher vibration. And, you'll notice, or I'll notice very quickly, who in the room is not of a frequency. And that is information that then I'm talking with the leaders about. And usually what'll happen is it'll unearth maybe a squeaky, wheel, maybe the cog in the system. And we can address that. It doesn't mean that that person's let go or fired or whatever. It means that that person might need a different task than they're being assigned. And so we're talking all about energy, and I'm feeling into the energy of the group, because if there is a misalignment, it's going to throw things off. And we can, within the first hour, we can identify it. And then we move through depending on if they're marketing a show, if it's, production that needs cohesiveness. If it's a business that's looking to reach their next financial goals, if it's HR issues, we'll take a look at it. And then there'll be practices that we work on together. And again, it's all about kind of having the coherency of the group through the heart.
Yeah.
And that's a very different way of approaching something in the business realm.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I mean, I can see how, for sure, California and the entertainment business would be in alignment with this. In the Midwest, I can see how a lot of people wouldn't understand it, but could totally use it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You were making me think of like and it kind of goes back to yoga in a way where they talk about in yoga that the senses are an obstruction to the mind,
Hmm.
the five senses. And
Yeah.
so how I see that though, through the lens of intuition, is that like, and almost something to the fact of what you were saying earlier, is that our original senses, our origin senses are the intuitive, all the feels, I call them like the see feel,
Hmm.
was it clairvoyance, clairaudience, like all of the clairs, right?
Hmm.
Those are our initial senses. And because they're unlimited by location and physical ability, like you can only see so much, you can only hear within a certain amount of distance, can only feel what's near you. But with the intuitive or the clairs, it's endless.
It's endless. Yeah. Yeah. Because what I'm seeing, like, let's just say if I see a car on the road, I don't know why, a Subaru, a
Yeah.
Subaru on the road. When I see that Subaru and it comes in through my eyes in that sense, I can instantly have 5 stories about a Subaru that
100%.
are 1,000% different than somebody else's.
Mm-hmm.
With the clairs that you're talking about, with intuition, it is a universal kind of knowing. It is tapping into a collective. It is not, again, the conscious reasoning is not needed in order to identify it. And I'll just say one of the tactics that I talk about because there's lots of businesses that are like, I do not like, there's different levels, is I'll start out with, when I'm talking about coherence, like kind of a clapping, and like, okay, follow me with this clapping. And like everyone can kind of do that beat.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, okay, now follow me. And I'll go really fast and kind of touch all different and snap and blah, 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 blah. And everyone's like, huh? I'm like, there's no way. And so that is just a very physical, instant way of seeing this is where our heart coherence is. If you've ever been around a horse or a pet, I'll go to that as well. That's the coherence. A horse is not going to be in your presence if you are anxious, if you are worried, if you are scared. But once you calm your senses down with your breath and tap into that heart space, that horse will come up and eat out of the palm of your hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
I know.
bringing in those.
It's the same. I was thinking about that too the other day, that I've always, oh God, I remember when I was a kid and I was like singing, I was like making up songs, I was for sure going to be like noticed on my block at Springfield, like before school,
Totally. Yes.
making up a song about the dogs on the street. And so I was singing, and like I was singing to the squirrel who was running up the tree, and then like the dog came over and the squirrel was staying with me, but then the dog was barking. And I remember this, and I remember my mom like getting out. She's like, "Would you just shut up and get in the car?" Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I was like, "Mom, they hear me. They're singing with me. Like we're communicating."
It's out of a Disney movie. Totally.
She's like, "Shut up, get in the car. We gotta go." I was like, "No." I was like, "I'm sorry, I have to go. Concert's over." Like.
But yes, exactly. Because that's, they're pure love. They're pure love.
And pure energy. Like if I see a dog or an animal, whatever, and they have a heightened response to me, whether it's because they have anxiety and they're angry or whatever it is, But if they don't turn it around quickly, I literally go home and I'm like, I got to meditate.
Yeah.
Like something's off in me.
Right.
Yeah. The same with babies. Babies are the same.
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 Yeah. Yes.
And there's something so special when you can connect to people you don't share a common language with.
Yeah.
But you do in a way, because the common language is energy.
That's right. Absolutely. That's beautiful. I love that.
So Jen, how can people find you, and who specifically are you working with or wanting to work with, or what?
Yeah.
How do people get to you?
Sure. Yeah. First of all, I'd love to hear from you. I could talk about this, for hours. So if anyone has any questions, my website's probably the best. It's Jen with 2 N's, JENN Cohen, Cohen, intuitive. My email's there as well. And then on Instagram, it's Jen Cohen Intuitive. And I work with people, with all types of people, all age ranges. It doesn't have to be about your work. It can be about just where you are in life, wherever that is. We talked about conflict resolution. Even if you just want to get in touch with someone maybe that has passed or is still on this earth, we can connect with them to support you and guide you on any questions that you may have. And then, of course, corporations and businesses, I'm here for that as well.
I love that.
Yeah.
Then I'll make sure to put it in the show notes as
Thank
well,
you.
all that information. I had a thought while you were saying that, and I think it escaped. Oh, yeah. I was going to say that, or just people who are looking for a guide, to help see to that higher vibration.
Absolutely.
Get back up. Because it does feel like, I know there's a lot of talk on, all the socials about, the 5D evolution and, moving up. And and honestly, I've heard that a lot. I've seen it a lot. And I've been like, I get it. I feel it. But what the heck are they talking about? But honestly, our conversation today, I feel like, is exactly what they're talking about. That people are coming away from this cerebral place, this needing to know all the kinks and work it all out for all of that served an older evolution of man. And we're actually moving into the higher evolution of man where we need the special skill of listening and following our intuition. And I feel like that's why you and I are called to this service to others to share, this is how you do it. This is how you get there,
Could not have said it better. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're bringing in more of the feminine traits. Doesn't mean that all of the masculine goes out the window. That's not at all it. It's just a balance. The masculine has really...
It's taken over.
Yeah, taken over. And we're seeing that change rapidly.
Yes. And just like how anything levels up, there's a big ass explosion before it's the next level.
Absolutely.
So it's like, the biggest challenge comes before the next evolution up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And there's such a more peaceful way for us to maneuver through it.
Yeah. Yes.
There is. And our intuition is begging for us to say, we'll help
Screaming.
you. Yeah.
I don't know how many people I've talked to and it's like we're afraid to say we're intuitive.
Yeah.
Or if they're coming in for a reading, they're afraid for the reading. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Your soul is beautiful. It's just being covered up with some stuff that needs to be looked at and either let go or transformed. That's it.
That's right.
And so.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
That fear is coming from the time that we were just talking about.
Yes.
It was seen as dangerous by those, that wanted to tap that down, that wanted to have the patriarchal age that we were in and the way in which that worked. Intuition did not fit into that.
No, because intuition is a stronger power.
That's right.
Than consciousness.
That's right.
Consciousness, but cerebral.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have a whole theory about that with the Salem witch trials and it's almost as though they turned intuition into an ugly thing. And they've turned the two major beautiful things about being female in this female form or of female relating to feminine energy.
Yeah.
Is the massive, it's like we're just more open to the creativity, to the intuition. Doesn't mean that it has to be female, but we're just naturally more open to it. And the ability to web together and support each other and rise up. So they pinned us against each other and we've gotten to catty places and competitive weird crap. That's all masculine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then turned the intuition into something, evil. And it's not. It's absolutely beautiful. And one of the most amazing things we can do as women, and we do as women, is to support each other.
That's right. That's right. Because any time that we're judging another woman, we're so judging ourselves.
Yeah. And we cause separation then.
That's right. That's right. And the separation is external, but where our intuition is really trying to tell us is the separation is internal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so coming back to where those stories were birthed,
Yeah.
because we did not come into this world with them.
No, we didn't.
And so that's the beautiful untethering.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, my heart is like crying. I'm so happy to have met you. And I'm just going to say we are staying in touch no matter what.
Absolutely. There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you all for joining and listening. And I'll put all of Jen's information in the show notes. And please feel free to reach out to her or me and make some magic today. Big buckets of love.